Hmm.
But the United States was a very isolationist country and didn't have the attitude of a great power until after World War II. In World War One, we felt dragged into it and these horrible wars, and that being quite irresponsible during the Great Depression and just ignoring everybody else's problems, didn't want to hear about it. And then we get a World War II out of that, and then we rethink that whole proposition.
If you had to speculate, if suppose the nationalists win, um, in Taiwan, because they're forced to, they have a very sort of pro-American policy. But if they had won in the mainland China, would it have been similar, where mainland China just turns into Taiwan, or would it have been different?
No, I'm sure it'd be different. One of the reasons Taiwan is after they lost the Civil War and they are on the island of Taiwan, they did big after action report analysis of what went wrong. And they decided it was corruption and that it was land reform, that they needed to fix those things. But they couldn't do land reform on the mainland because that's their officer corps. But when they come to Taiwan, they can more than redistribute Taiwanese land, which they do, and it's bloody because the Taiwanese don't want their land redistributed. And the Taiwanese were given bonds, and they thought those bonds would be like the pieces of paper that were issued in the mainland, i.e., worth nothing. But actually, after time, they became quite valuable. But land reform was bloody in Taiwan.
Hmm.
And but it's today Taiwan has a very equal income distribution.
And what is the explanation for when you were just had these tallies of numbers up of how many deaths through different events? And so the famine obviously makes sense. A lot of people would die, but you just go down the list, and there's so many things where a couple million people die, and it's like 1 out of 10 items that happen within a span of a couple of decades.
It's famine. If you have warfare, you have famine. Yeah, it's not mostly bang bang you're dead. It's just that goes on too, but it's starvation when you disrupt things in this way.
Why didn't the communists have the same troubles that the Kuomintang had in terms of not being able to pay its soldiers? I mean, it was the same China, right? It wasn't a developed economy, so why didn't they have trouble paying their soldiers and retaining them?
Oh, I think it's because everyone's on board about the peasants have got their land. The only way they're ever going to keep it, they think, is by supporting the communists. And then they're all Mao isn't living any kind of luxurious life. There's no. That was another thing that you have these rich officer corps and the nationalists flaunting their wealth among absolutely starving people, and that's another reason why they're hated. Whereas the communists never had those people, so no one's flaunting their wealth. You saw the pictures of Mao and his beloved there in these incredibly baggy clothing. No one's got luxury wear or anything.
Although after they win, Mao is like famously a fan of luxury and has right in a way that I think like Stalin would sleep on his couch in his office.
Yeah, I don't know the details on Mao. Mao had other things that had to do with little girls, but anyway.
Okay, so if we go, you were just mentioning the China, this period of turmoil, constantly there's insurgencies and chaos. And then we go to all the turmoil that Mao causes, all the people, when he gets in power, tens of millions of people are dying. And yet, there's never a major insurgency after he takes power. There's never a coup that works.
Communists are good at this. When the North Vietnamese win, what do they promptly get? Famine. And in Vietnam, I think you have kind of three harvests. Like, how do you ever have famine in that place? But uh, yeah, they did. This is the brilliance of communism is this commissar system and the party system and how they set up their government. It's incredibly effective about maintaining power. It's very effective about seizing power during warfare, maintaining it thereafter, but it does not deliver prosperity. It delivers compounding poverty. Take a look at North Korea. It's a mess, but the man's in power.
Why don't the high-level officials in the CCP, after they see the impact of the Great Leap Forward, the Liu Shaoqus and the Deng Xiaopings, why don't they?
They
I mean,
did.
well, he wasn't running day-to-day affairs, but in terms of making sure he's never in a position to in the future do the
They
Cultural
tried.
Revolution.
This is when you get Peng Dehuai, who he was the general that was in charge of forces during the Korean War, and also he had Long March generation. He had lost several of his siblings to starvation over the course of these civil wars, and he and Liu Shaoqi pulled the plug on Mao, and then Mao is demoted from one of his positions And that's when you get the Cultural Revolution, because Mao is on his way out of power from these guys. So what does Mao do? Is he rallies, he gets out of Beijing and he rallies the youth, the Red Guards. These are the children who've been educated in communist education about how wonderful the communists are and beloved Chairman Mao. So Chairman Mao tells the teenagers that they should be in charge. Think about teenagers, not much life experience, but telling them they're in charge. And then they start out by killing off their teachers, right? They have teachers they probably don't like, and it's incredibly empowering. And then they start working their way up the educational system and fan outward. And it's like a semi-civil war. And then this is when Lin Biao comes in, who is a military leader, and Mao's going to use him to restore order. But after he's ousted all the people who are going to get rid of him. So that's what the Cultural Revolution is about. And it is ruinous for production, right? Doing all this. And you're gutting your educational system. Like all the people who gave the hard grades who may have actually known something, they're gone.
From Mao's perspective, didn't the Cultural Revolution work extremely well? Because
For him, yeah. Not for China.
He launches it because he sees Khrushchev's speech in 1956 denouncing Stalin and what he had done, and didn't want the same thing to happen to him after he dies. And today, look, the portrait of Mao hangs in hangs in the square, and he's like revered in a way that Hitler or Stalin aren't revered in their countries, despite killing more people. So,
well, though, I think Stalin's having a bit of a comeback with Vladimir Putin. So, and Vladimir Putin is starting to mimic more of the centralized. He's going to re-centralize his economy in ways that start looking like the old one.
when people say things like Xi Jinping is acting like Mao, how do you react knowing how Mao actually behaved?
Oh, Xi Jinping apparently reveres Mao. My understanding about Xi Jinping's education is his dad was a very high-level communist leader who was purged but not killed and sent to sort of interior north somewhere in China. And so when she was on the, what is it, the down to the countryside movement, where a lot of kids were sent to really horrible places, he was sent, I think, where his dad was. So, or where protectors who liked his dad were. So it wasn't as bad as it could be. But he was not well educated because he couldn't be in that period, right? It's during the, he may have degrees from places, but the institution in question during the Cultural Revolution wasn't delivering an education. So he's a believer in communism. Don't ever kid yourself that the Communist Party of China doesn't believe in communism. Now they think they've modified some of the economic stuff under Deng Xiaoping, but now they're re-centralizing it right back to the way it was.
Given the fact that he personally suffered during the Cultural Revolution, I think there's a story that at some point, because his dad was announced, and he like tried to come back to their home to get fed by his mother, and his mother had to turn him away. This happens to him during the Cultural Revolution.
Sniff.
How do you explain these these CCP officials who personally suffered during the Cultural Revolution being pro-Mao?
I mean, Stalin was abused as a child, and then he's incredibly abusive. Hitler was abused as a child. I mean, why would you expect? Well, you're so the man. I use the word sociopath or a psychopath. I think both apply to him. Don't think he's going to have any tender mercies for anyone. I mean, his own son is. He abandoned various sets of kids who starved to death and died. And one son, he put him right up in Korea where he could get killed, and he promptly did. So, and Stalin that was another great one. Well, the Nazis captured Stalin's son and wanted to trade him for something, and Stalin said, "No."
How do people in China today think about Mao, and why aren't they more pissed off? You look at these numbers.
I'm guessing. I'm not Chinese, but I think all of us need to be proud of things. And of course, one thing to be very proud of if you're Chinese is Chinese civilization. These enormous achievements in philosophy, in the sciences, all kinds of arts. It's incredible. But many Chinese also want to feel proud of their leaders. And so Mao is incredibly consequential. And I think it's also really hard to look at the dark side of your own country. This country has slavery. It is our original sin. We have not gotten over it. And the part of the United States where slavery was most deeply embedded to this day has the deepest problems dealing with that. So if Americans who are rich and have everything have trouble with these things, why would we think? And this country has so much to be that's just obvious to be proud of. Like, we're just the wealth and innovation and things of recent innovation. And then we claim we won all these wars all by our lonesome. And of course, we had allies. Come on. But I think that's part of it, is understanding the Chinese history's been so sad. If you ever go to a Chinese movie, you hear the ardor, whatever the instrument is whatever it is. I've got the word wrong. It's just so sad and melancholy. Whereas American movies are all happy, millions of people die, but the good guys live, right? And, it's always a happy ending. And what is it? What the Arnold Schwarzenegger line in True Lies? Oh, honey, they were all bad. I mean, that's.
I want to try out an idea on you. So
You've tried many. What's the latest?
One could claim that Mao being so terrible and being this strong counterexample is what the reformers needed in order to create China's post-Mao growth, in the sense that if you to like really abandon communism and pursue pro-growth policies, you needed viscerally the Cultural Revolution as a counterexample, the Great Leap Forward, to say, no, we got to try something else.
Possible. Definitely possible, because of all the people who are ruined by it. But I think there's another one. You should give the Taiwanese great credit. Taiwan did an after-action report. They're one of the 4 Asian tigers that went from a very poor country to an absolutely wealthy country. And I think it's around 1990-ish, where Taiwan is, I think the statistics are right, I'll try this. It's got 1/50th the population of the mainland. It's got 1/250th of the land mass of the mainland, and it has about 40% of the GNP. And if you're PRC mainland looking at this, how embarrassing. The losers of the war have won the peace and put you to shame for how incompetently brutal you are. And that's Taiwan's problem to this day, is that they are a rebuke to everything of the Communist Party is. And there used to be this racist notion that, Han Chinese and democracy, incompatible, can't do that. Well, Taiwan has proven that wrong. And look at Taiwan. They have, what is it, their chip foundry? Incredible. No one can duplicate it, right? Impressive. Tell me something that China has that no one can duplicate except for crazy stuff.
What I find disturbing about communism in comparison to, I mean, maybe even like especially Chinese communism, is if you when Hitler is killing the Jews, he doesn't make them first say, listen, we were responsible for World War I, which he falsely claimed, and we renounce our Semitic ways or something. And with the Cultural Revolution, with Chinese communism, there's a very important aspect where the victim must participate in their own victimization. They must be the one to say, I'm guilty, in a way that didn't seem necessary in other kinds of regimes.
Hitler's just trying to annihilate people, so he didn't care what they're going to tell him. He's just going to kill them all. So that's just a complete... He's into destroying every last Jew there is, right? Plus gypsies and some other people. So that's a separate thing. China has a long tradition of education. I mean, what's Confucianism about? It's the scholars at the top, right? It's in Japan, it's the general, the shoguns at the top. In China, the soldiers at the bottom of the social pyramid. And it's all about educating people. And then the entire imperial system, how did you get mobility? And there was actually a way to mobility, is take the imperial exams. And if you pass them and do well, you're off and running. So, and there's also a tradition of re-educating people. You could shoot everybody, you could. But that's not the Chinese tradition. The loads of people dying is a lot of it's starvation. So people like Deng Xiaoping, who, if he'd been in Russia, Stalin killed all the old Bolsheviks, right? There was no chance to come back, whereas the Chinese will put people in prison and try to re-educate them, and then you let them out afterwards. It's a tradition of educating people, different culture, different approaches to these things.
Yeah, if you look at, you're mentioning Chiang Kai-shek's purge of the communists, where he just massacred thousands
Oh,
of them.
yes.
Uh, whereas other people,
He's a soldier.
whereas other people, even other nationalists, wanted to be accommodate the communists more, especially early on. And I think he has one quote that, the Japanese are a disease of the flesh, but the
Yes.
communists are a disease of the soul. So, what was the nature